let's just review quickly what we covered last week. And then before we get started in a grounding meditation, we'll kick off every day. Every time we come together, we'll just kind of encourage you to land here with a short meditation, just to ground us, kind of arrive in the room together. So we'll just delay that a few minutes by just going over everything we covered last time quickly, and then we'll jump into new content. Sound good? All right. Well, obviously it's wonderful to see all of you. We were just talking about the event, of course, Saturday night, and how beautiful it was, and just kind of, I was there witnessing all of the interactions and work and, just the dynamics, and it was interesting to kind of be on the other side of that. And I was, there were moments where I was like, this is a lot for each of them, right? I was really feeling like you're there's a lot of moving parts to an event like that. So I just couldn't even believe it. Yeah. And then I thought how wonderful it was that we were seeing each other today, right? Because it's almost like you have to shake it off a little, right? Like it is like a hangover. And do you know why? I mean, physiologically, right? Physiologically, it actually is a hormonal hangover that you're experiencing, because there's a lot of adrenaline and cortisol that gets pumped into the system when you're under that kind of stress, right? And so this really is compelling, because we get this rush of hormones, we have a rush of chemicals that really flood the brain, and you kind of go into survival mode. Like you almost go into autopilot, right? You're not really digesting properly. Your organs aren't getting the attention that they need, because everything has been moved to task-oriented things that must get done, right? So then the system kind of crashes for a few days as the liver detoxifies from that chemical explosion that just happened, and we feel exhausted. Right? So it really is a time this week to recover and pay attention to things that will detoxify you, not just physiologically, but emotionally and mentally, and just kind of shaking off that, the experience, even though it was wonderful. Like the same thing happens in a family wedding, right? So it doesn't mean that this was a traumatic event. It just was a lot of work.
But in a way, aren't like the excitement and
it's the same thing.
Same things happen.
Right.
I wonder why I slept 12 hours last night.
Exactly. And then on top of it, we're confronted with daylight savings time, which doesn't really make any sense to our systems, right? So you've got like a double whammy this week of, this really intense, like exciting, really busy couple of days that leading up to the event, and then the event itself. And I'm sure not everything went off perfectly, probably behind the scenes, right? Right? That could happen, maybe not. But even if it even if it completely unfolded the way it was supposed to, it's still a lot. So I just wanted to name that, because it's something we're all dealing with. Right? So all the highlights of our life, whether they're the joys, the things we're celebrating, the weddings, the birthdays, the celebrations that we have, the births, we also have the deaths, the transitions, the losses. And our system doesn't really respond differently. We just feel like, right? So anyway. So we are here to support you in shedding all of that and enjoying this moment just as it is, and kind of opening up to whatever's next, which is a lot. We're coming into the holiday season, and you're getting ready for more. So we're moving ahead. And mindfulness is the perfect remedy for this time of year. So this will keep you planted down in what's happening right now. Because right now, I could assure you that everything's okay. Everything that needed to be attended to in this moment has been. So we could all just be here together in the room, and we could kind of just file it away for a bit. All right, so I want to encourage you to do that with a short practice. Okay, so I know that there's things that will require your attention after we're done today, but I want you to sit up nice and tall in your seat, push away from the table, ground your feet, and relax your hands down on your legs. And then just do me a favor, let's pull the shoulders up towards the ears. Hello, come and join us. And then just pull them back and down. So I want you to really emphasize this a few times. So pull the shoulders up to your ears, maybe even hold them here for just a moment. Oh, yeah. Yeah, just pull that jacket off. Yep. Is that yours, Christine? Yeah. You could just, yeah. So let's pull the shoulders up to the ears and just squeeze the shoulders up and relax them back and down. And we'll do that one more time, but this time pull the shoulders up towards the ears and hold, and release. Good. Now just close your eyes. Just bring your attention now into your body just as it is. So notice the shape that your body's in, sitting on this chair, in this room, in this building. Feel your feet against the floor and your sit bones grounded. And just track your nice, strong, tall spine and the crown of the head gently reaching up towards the ceiling. Now open this field of awareness to also include the sounds of life happening around us, whether it's inside this space or beyond. And just allow them to be there, almost like a backdrop. Now bring your attention back into your body. And now just land your attention into your hands. Really feel your hands resting on your legs. And as if you were experiencing your hands from the inside out, notice what's here right now. Perhaps a gentle vibration. Notice if there's warmth there beneath the hands. And just notice all of the aliveness right here inside. Now take a deep breath in through the nose and a soft breath out of the mouth. And two more just like that. Inhale. Exhale. And one more big breath in. And a big breath out. Now you could just tip the chin down, and when you're ready, just encourage the eyes to open at your own pace and invite the light back in, coming back into the room, back into the space together. Thank you. Okay, so just in a few minutes, we could really shift out of the busyness that's happening, right? All of the tasks and the to-do list, the planning of the day, the planning of the next day, right? And we could just land here in our bodies. And when we're connected to our bodies, it brings us squarely into the moment. When we're connected to our breath, when we're connected to our bodies. When stress is happening, we get really out of our body. Right? We almost can't even feel our feet beneath us. So it's interesting, right? And if you're not sure if you've had that experience, I would encourage you next time you feel like things are a little overwhelming or out of control to just check into your body. Feel your feet standing against the floor. I'm back in my body. So just doing that, just returning back. That's really what we did in that meditation. Just landing here, arriving fully, and getting a little curious. And it just reassures the system, the central nervous system, that, oh, okay, I'm right here, and everything's okay right now. And sometimes the system just needs that little reminder, right? And then we could kind of open into the rest of the day, the rest of the world, the people around us in a way that's more clear. So that's what this first session is about. How do I anchor? How do I arrive? And what could I use? What's the best way to start when I need to really come back and land and be here? Because sometimes it's easier to be away from what's happening right now, right? So we do these practices in a really formal way and informal ways just when ordinary life is happening. But in order to have access to the practices when ordinary life is happening, we have to really train up in the formal practices so that we're able to do that. Because otherwise, what happens? Any ideas? We get reactive, right?
Yeah. So you're saying if you don't train.
Yeah, if we don't have enough time in the more formal practices like we just had, right? It's really hard for most people, right? There are people that are just really calm in their nature, and they have a bigger capacity to kind of drop in, right? But the vast majority of us don't have that capacity naturally. And many of us that do have it lose it when we're in a constant state of busyness, right? When we're always going, when we're burning the candle at both ends, right? We get depleted. Our system just gets emptied out of those resources. So this is really your time to fill up, right? So that when we need to access the resources, they're there. All right. So what is an anchor? I want you to think of an analogy of a boat just adrift at sea. Okay, and what do we do when we need to just pause? Who is a fisherman here? Anybody?
She's not here today.
She's not here today? We anchor. We throw the anchor in, right? And it drops to the bottom and it lands in the ground and it tucks under the sand, and the boat kind of could drift off a little, right? But it can't get swept away by the waves. All right, and we could think of our life the same way. If we don't have an anchor, when the weather changes, right? When situations change that make us feel comfortable, and they will, when people change, when our jobs change, right? When circumstances change that are beyond our control, because most of it is, arguably, right? When that changes, if we have that anchor established, then we're not going to abandon ourselves. right? Because there's a space inside that we could get really anchored in, this grounding space. And that's what we're trying to connect to all the time. And it's this space of like this ancestral quality, right? This knowing, this authenticity. And when we feel disconnected from that, we kind of feel disoriented. It's very disorienting, as a matter of fact. But if we're not paying attention enough, it happens really easily, and it'll happen to all of us. Okay? So these practices are meant to bring us back, right? And when I say the body, yes, the body, but there's something a little deeper there, right? And it could be the God of your own understanding. It could be the universe. It could be your religion or faith, right? Your soul, whatever it is that we need to connect to, this primordial wisdom exists in each of us, this essence of who we are, this person that we know and trust, this being, consciousness. Okay, so we're trying to land back in there again and again. So the most common way to anchor in the mindfulness meditation practices is the breath. Okay, however, 20% of the people in this room right now will have trouble anchoring in the breath. Okay, why? Any ideas?
I think you're almost like subconscious that like you're doing it wrong, so like you try and change it all the time. Like I worry if I'm even breathing right. I don't think there's even a right way to breathe, but like that was like exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, oh shit, I'm probably breathing too fast. Right. That's such a good point and very correct. Any other ideas of why the breath could be tough for some people? Or if it's tough for you, if you want to share? Anybody have a deviated septum? Allergies? Asthma? A cold? Right? We could have really physical reasons that are beyond our control. There's a story that my teacher tells, Jack Kornfield, and it was about a meditation retreat he was leading, and a student came to him, and it was a silent retreat, so it was like a 7-day silent retreat, and the student came to him, and she said, I'm leaving. You know, it's been very great, but I can't do this. This is not for me. I'm out of my element. And he said, come sit with me, and let's talk about it. You know, let's see what's going on. And she said, every time I breathe, I start crying. I feel out of control. You know, things get really hard and it's just too much trauma. And they dug a little deeper. And of course, he's a doctor of psychology, and he started doing some therapeutic methods with her. And what they uncovered is that she was raised on a farm. And when she was a little girl, a litter of kittens were born in the barn, and it was a stray cat, and you know, and she was taking care of these kittens and loving these kittens, and it was a big deal for her as a little child. And they were trying to find homes for them, and they couldn't. And so the father brought a, what is that? Ether, yeah. He euthanized the kittens. And she witnessed some of this as a child. And she remembered that smell of the ether. And to make matters worse, a few weeks or months later, however much time had passed, she had to go to the dentist. And when she got to the dentist, she needed a tooth pulled. And this is, you know, she was an older woman, so this is years back. They used ether to put her to sleep so they could pull the tooth out. And when they brought the ether towards her face, she smelled and remembered the experience with the kittens, and she thought she would never wake up. And so this all unfolded. So you see how there could be deep trauma there just in breathing. Right? If you were a child and got terrified in a body of water, you know, things could come up that we didn't recognize, right? That we didn't even remember, that we didn't even know that was there. These stories of our life that we hold on to. And sometimes unconsciously they get buried just so we could survive these events, right? So it's important to be kind and gentle to yourself. 1 in 4 adults have dealt with some form of trauma in their lives, right? So as we're doing these courses together, as we're going deep inside and looking in to see what's there, if things come up, it's important to recognize what's happening, allow it to be there, and we'll learn more about these methods as we go along, but also not force yourself to stay at this point. We're in the very beginning, right? So if we're recognizing, I'm feeling some sadness, or I'm really struggling with the breath and it's bringing something up for me, we could go to the body as an anchor, as an alternative. So right now we're dropping in a way that feels most supportive right now as a new practitioner. Does that make sense? Okay, so using the breath as an anchor, using the body as an anchor, both are very supportive at this stage. So if you feel yourself going down a rabbit hole without all the support you need, I want you to back off, catch yourself, all right? And land in an anchor that feels really supportive right now for you, okay? Whether that's the body or the breath. So why is the breath an effective anchor for most people? Any thoughts on that?
Breathe right, it relaxes your muscles.
Yeah, there's a relaxing quality there. Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Any other ideas?
You can control it.
Yeah, we have this ability to connect to it, but it's also happening whether or not we're participating. Right? The body is just breathing. Whether or not we're paying attention, we could trust that the body's breathing on its own. And we know that our systems really support us in any situation that we're in, right? So if we're working out, we're breathing faster, right? If we get really calm and restful and relaxed, the breath changes, right? Yeah. But the breath is always with us. It's with us from the moment we arrive into the world. We take our first inhale, and it's the last thing we do before we transition into whatever's next, right? So it's a companion, and it's a means to connect to life happening right now. What do we do when we are witnessing beauty before us, right? We take a deep breath, right? When we get excited, right? When we're grieving, the breath gets short and choppy. So we could tune into the breath happening, and we could develop this really intimate relationship with our breath, which makes us feel more connected to life. So it's very, very powerful. The nature of breath. There's a couple of things I wanted to cover here. So in different cultures around the world, the breath is not only revered as a tool, a way to connect, a way to be, but it's also bringing something in that we need. What is that? Oxygen, right? The breath is also a conduit for this life force energy called prana. So prana, or chi, or life force energy, is not the breath, but the yogis believe in Chinese medicine, in indigenous cultures around the world, the breath is revered as the gateway for this life force energy to come in. So we could open to that. So who feels especially alive at the beach? Yeah. Or in the mountains, by a river or a stream, in nature. So we've all had these experiences, right? Where we just need a breath of fresh air. Why? Why does that enliven us? How many of you have noticed when you don't experience that pranic energy? Where have maybe you not experienced it, or you felt a lack of it? Where? Jersey? That's a good answer. Right? we pull in prana not only through the breath, but through the elements around us, nature, right? Healthy food, right? Whatever we're putting inside our bodies, right? Energy, good energy from people, right? Have you ever walked past somebody in the mall and you're like, woo, like the hair on the back of my neck stood up, right? What was that, right? The key guy? Right? I mean, it's true. Everything's vibrational, right? Everything's on a frequency, and we could tap into that. And we sensitize ourselves to it when we do practices like this. We're kind of opening to it. Okay? So the first way we access is through breathing. So just by taking a few deep breaths in nature, our systems will feel refreshed, energized, restored. There's qualities there that we can't ignore. We can't argue. We've all experienced it. We've also experienced when there's a lack of pranic energy or force, right? So if you eat McDonald's, right? When was the last time you guys had McDonald's? Anybody? I don't remember either, right? You guys are exposed to wonderful food all the time, right? But when you eat something that's really not good for you, chicken wings is my thing. Like, I love buffalo chicken bites and I barely eat meat. So if I really get a craving for it and I go eat it, I just feel like disgusting, right? Or if I smoke a cigarette. I used to smoke in college, and every now and then if I have one too many, right, I'll have a cigarette. And then the next day I feel like, oh my God, like all my life force energy is gone, right? Because those things aren't good for us. So we know we have this wisdom inside that tells us, right? But these practices help us open to it. So absent to breath, there is no life, right? I remember when I was a little girl, I too grew up on a farm, but that story wasn't about me. And my uncle lived down a dirt road from us, and there was a barn, and he had found... what are those ugly little animals? The opossums. They are really ugly, right? They're so ugly, they're cute. He found a litter of opossums, like abandoned, like by a tree, and they were all in the barn. And I kept like going down there and checking on them. And when I went one Sunday, they were all dead. And it was the first time I ever saw anything dead, being a little kid. And I knew right away, like as soon as I looked at them, I knew that their life force was gone, like there were just bodies in there, right? So we've all had that experience too. When the breath is gone, the life is over. That person's no longer there, right? So we don't ever want to take the breath for granted, but we want to learn. Did I say that right? We don't ever want to take the breath for granted, but we want to develop this trust, right? Because there's a lot of freedom there in trusting. So let's get to know the breath a little bit. Let's pull away from the tables. And I'd like you to ground your feet again and relax your hands. So we ask you to relax the hands because this represents like a non-clinging kind of state. So just it relaxes the system a little more. So see if you could just open your fingers and relax your hands down. And close your eyes. So just notice your body here sitting. Know that you're fully supported in this space that we're sharing together. And now bring your attention fully into the breath just as it is. So there's no need to change the breath. There's no need to deepen the breath. It's just this looking in to see what's there. And the first thing I want you to look for is, are you breathing in and out of your nose or in and out of your mouth? And neither experience is wrong right now. We're just paying attention. You might even be breathing in through the nose and out of the mouth. Notice the bells. They pull us away. And just allow that sound to dissipate, and let's return back into the breath. Maybe even take a deep exhale here. Now try breathing in and out of the nose. So more intention here. So we're manipulating just slightly. However, if this becomes really uncomfortable for you, just allow the mouth to open and relax. Now I'd like each of you to notice how the breath is coming in and where you're connecting to the breath most once it lands inside. So where do you feel the breath entering inside the nose? Is it at the nostrils, perhaps? Maybe at the top of the nose? Notice if you feel the breath coming down the trachea. Notice if you feel the breath in the chest as the inhales expand and the exhales contract. Notice if you feel the breath lower, maybe in the belly. And wherever that experience is feeling most connected, I'd like you to softly rest your attention there, and we're going to call that the touch of the breath. Just rest the attention for a moment. Try to relax. And after the next exhale, just open your eyes. Okay. So how did that go for you guys? Does anyone want to share what they experienced?
I actually felt myself leaning forward. At one point, my hands felt so heavy. I really felt myself at one point going this way.
Interesting.
It was weird.
I'm glad you noticed that. Anybody else? Did anyone feel the touch of the breath at the nostrils most? You did? Right inside the nostrils, yeah.
I had to sneeze at one point.
Yeah. Anybody at the top of the nose, before the breath goes down? Yeah. Yeah.
Until we did that, I never realized I don't really feel it until it gets back into my nasal cavity. I don't feel it in my nose at all.
Right. Right. Anybody down here, in the throat, into the chest area? Anybody just with the expansion and contraction? Yeah, some of that, yeah. Anybody in the belly? Feeling the belly breathe? Yeah. So what's really interesting is this touch of the breath. So I want you to remember that, this touch of the breath. Where's the touch of the breath? That's what to look for first. And what's really interesting is that'll always change. Right? So this is how it is right now. Relax there. Right? And then we could just use this touch of the breath as an anchor to return to. And what you might even notice is within the same 5 minutes that you're sitting and practicing, that touch could change. So you might get distracted by the bell, right? Something happening. Return back and notice, oh, I feel the breath is different now. And instead of, notice also if you want it to be back how it was in the beginning, right? We start getting really attached to things pretty quickly, okay? So we might notice, oh, I wish it was back where it was when I felt it at first, or back how it was when Jen was leading us through, right? And just catch yourself and know that that's an entanglement, that it's just a story, and just return to what you're experiencing right now. So how is the breath right now is a good phrase. So there's always these anchors we could use and these supportive phrases that we could layer on to kind of bring us back into this space, a more spacious experience in the practice, right? As soon as you get caught up, it pulls us away from present moment awareness, which is what we're trying to build, right? So just that slight change could catch us up. And then you might notice, or you might not notice, that you've been swept away in like a story, right? So the anchor isn't anchored anymore. But once you notice you've been swept away, that, oh, why am I thinking about a vacation I'm planning 3 months from now, right? That's what'll happen. Or it's like the squirrel, right? Why am I thinking about this crazy thing that happened that has no relevance to what I'm trying to do right now? It happens to all of us. So instead of being hypercritical, oh, I can't do this, this isn't for me, I'm doing it wrong, right? We could just say, I'm going to return back to that anchor, that touch of the breath. Okay, so that's one tool. All right, the touch of the breath. Sit up tall again. I want now for us to look at some qualities that are there that could be really supportive as we practice. Everybody in this room right now, including me, is pretty tired, I could tell, right? Our eyes are heavy. It's the time change, right? We're off, right? So let's sit up nice and tall, nice straight spine. Rest your eyes. Just landing in the body for a moment. Now again, just encouraging the mouth to just relax, the lips to close, and the breath to come in and out through the nose. And I'd like you to turn your attention towards the inhale, just the inhale. So encourage the exhale just to happen without paying too much attention to it. And with the next breath in, try to take it a little deeper. And notice that there's qualities there. There's an aliveness there in the inhale, and alertness. There's a vibrancy. A vividness. Notice how those qualities are very wakeful to the system. Just 2 more big breaths. And just simply open your eyes, coming back into the space. Kind of wakes us up, right? Anybody experience that? Did you notice some of those qualities in the inhale? Anybody not experience them?
I'm sorry, I'm about to sleep.
I me too.
Right. Everybody's sleepy.
2 o'clock. 2:30.
Right. Yeah. It's exhausting. Wait till we get to the exhale, you might fall asleep. You know what my teacher said to me one day when I was traveling to see her, and we were going to London. I was going to London, and went right from the airport to my class, and I didn't sleep on the red eye. So I got to class and I kept like nodding off, and I'm like, Sarah, what should I do when I'm just this tired? I'm jet lagged, She's like, Jennifer, you should sleep. Right? So it's hard to meditate or practice the method when your body's just exhausted, right? So we could use, though, these qualities to just find that little extra edge of alertness. Say you have a meeting. Does anybody have any more meetings today? Or is this it for most of you? Right? We could really just invite those qualities in. So you don't only have the option to just notice or experience them. You could invite them in, right? You could set that intention behind it, and you could layer that with a visualization of the prana coming in, right? The energy enlivening us. But know that it's there. The inhale holds all those qualities of wakefulness, of alertness. But when the system's just depleted and exhausted, it's not going to be as effective as it normally would be. But next time, tomorrow, when you sit, try to notice them in that 3 to 5 minute time, right? Especially when we're in our formal practice, if we notice, there's just a dullness here or a boredom, right? Bring your attention into the qualities of the inhale, because it'll add this layer of vividness, right? And that could be really interesting. And if it doesn't sound interesting yet, I think that I could get you there. Okay? All right, so let's look at the exhale. And if you doze off a little, it's okay. Nobody's going to judge you. All right? So sit up nice and tall. And that nice, strong, noble spine is important right now. So you could even pull your low belly in just slightly, just to maintain the spine here. And again, noticing our bodies. Just anchoring the feet down, resting the hands down, and now turning towards the breath. So now we're going to just shift gears and allow the inhale just to happen. And bring all of your attention on the relaxing quality of the out-breath, of the exhale. And feel free to extend the exhale just slightly. And notice how your body responds to that exhale. If you have any tension anywhere in the physical body, pay particular attention in that specific area. And notice how there's almost a letting go quality here. Just take 3 more breaths. And with this next exhale, just really let the breath empty out completely. And then just open your eyes.
Dizzy.
Dizzy?
A little bit.
Disorienting?
My eyes are brighter.
Yeah. Did it feel restful? Yeah. Anybody else want to share what they noticed? Clearly,
there's this shift, right? When we go there, when we bring our attention into the parts of the breath. Because we often don't think, has anybody ever thought about the breath this way? Like there's pieces and parts to it, right? It's really different.
When I'm under stress, I don't breathe a lot. So
right.
I catch myself and I just start taking 3 deep breaths.
Mm-hmm.
It's relaxing.
Yeah, completely. And go ahead.
I just wanted to add that sometimes when we're breathing deeply like that and you start to get feeling dizzy, it's because you're fully oxygenated.
Okay.
Yeah, and it can give us that sort of, that sense of being disoriented a little bit, and always remembering that even though like the idea that you were so tired even after the focus on the inhalation tells me a lot about how tired you are.
Yeah.
And remembering that your inhalation is always going to repair your central nervous system that's just been kind of beat up by all the stress. So even though you might not feel it now, inhales are always energizing and awakening and repairing, and your exhale is always going to sedate. So that as we're exhaling, I always feel like the sense of coming, like almost like you're coming down in the elevator, down, 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 into that really relaxed state. So you can almost start to use your own breathing like medicine, because the ideal state is to be awake and at the same time relaxed, right?
Yeah.
That nice
alert
balance.
That alert equilibrium. It's a centering practice, right? But there are times, with all that being said, that we need, especially in the formal practice, to lean into one end of the breath just to feel more supported, right? Because if there's excessive energy in the system, anxiety perhaps, right? What do we need? We need the exhale. We need to lean into the exhale, because that extra energy that's coming in on the in-breath might really throw us out of balance. It could toss us into a panic attack, right? When we're just, right? That's what we do.
I've actually used that practice when I get my blood pressure taken.
Yeah.
So it comes out a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I do that too.
It-
Sometimes I think I shouldn't do this because it's accurate, but I like to see how low I get.
Yeah. It's really interesting. So we can manipulate and work with the breath. We could also trust that the breath will happen whether or not we're paying attention. So we now have this companion that we could really lean into. So for instance, if you have an interaction with somebody here or outside of here that you notice you're being triggered or you're going into overwhelm, you could just pause and breathe and really pay attention to the exhale and connect to your body and be in the situation without being really reactive, right? So that's what we're going to work up to as we go through these trainings. But this is a good way to start, just landing in the breath, right? Landing in the breath. We know that just 3 full deep breaths hacks the central nervous system. It brings that state of steadiness and ease, right? So it's always about remaining steady and easeful, more open, spacious, right? Because when things get too tight, when we block, right, we start moving into that fight or flight, and that's when we get really reactive. So we're just working with the breath today. There's a space between the breath that's also really supportive. Okay, there's a pause between the breath coming in before the breath goes out. And there's a pause before the next breath comes in. And this space between the breath is really interesting, right? So in absence of breath, we can have an experience. When the body's full of breath, we could have an experience. Neither should feel radical or overwhelming to the system. So we're not looking ever to overwhelm the system
in any way through these practices. It's all support. But in this gentle, quiet space, whether the breath's in or out, the space between the breath, there could be this really connected feeling of just being here. Okay, so let's give that a try. All right? Sit up tall and relax. So maybe take a few deep breaths just to get connected. And this is also a really good way to get started as you go off on your own the next couple days to give these things a try. Just taking a few deep conscious breaths. And we'll just empty out this next exhale. And now tracking the inhale. Tracking your exhale. And now I'm just going to add a little layer of instruction so we're all on the same beat. So with the next breath in, we'll inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Now hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. And hold the breath out, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold the breath out, 2, 3, 4. Last round. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold the breath out. Now inhale and exhale. And now just returning to your own comfortable rhythm for a couple more breaths. Notice the quality of the breath right now. And notice the quality of the mind. And you can open your eyes when you're ready. So what did you guys notice? What was there? So that was more method.
Towards the end, I lost my sense of smell, actually. Last couple breaths.
Lost your sense of smell. Interesting. So what were you noticing instead of the sense of smell?
A lack of.
Was there like a stillness? Just a stillness? Or were you kind of stuck on, oh, I'm not smelling?
Yeah, I was stuck on that.
Yeah. So that makes sense to me as the chef. Like, you know, right? You're probably always paying attention with that sense to what's happening in the
They
kitchen.
were cooking it for staff when I was walking in. It smelled like a cafeteria. It did. Sorry.
Interesting. That's fascinating. That's really fascinating. That's fascinating. Anybody?
It got harder to like breathe in for like those 5 seconds. Like towards the end, like I'm like, I can't get any more to come in. I'm like, it was weird. Like
Yeah.
getting to that 4. Like at first, like you don't think about it, but then when somebody's actually counting it, like you have to keep breathing in.
Right.
Like that. Like it felt like tighter. As
It didn't make you feel overwhelmed?
No.
Okay, good. Yeah, but you
Just,
just
like,
noticed it,
like, thinking
the
about
capacity
how,
shifted. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I had more of a hard time holding it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So there was almost like you needed to take it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. It's a balancing breath. And the more we work with that, it's called pranayama methods, breathing practices, pranayama. So prana means life force energy and yama means control of, right? So when we're retaining and holding for just a few beats, we're just creating this space of equanimity, right? The mind, whose mind was busy during that? Anybody's? Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Did it feel overwhelming?
Not overwhelming. It was just my mind just was going.
Going. Did anyone else notice stillness? Like there's no thoughts going on.
Didn't think about anything but breathing.
Right. So that's also a method to prepare for practice because it gives your mind a job to do. And that job, the mind gets really focused on concentrating on the method and it stills. So it could be a really great way for beginners to just drop in to a more a better mind, a better headspace for the actual formal practice. So I will oftentimes layer in some pranayama before I do my practice, especially if I know I'm already on overwhelm coming into the formal practice, right? Like something's going on, my mind is not here right now. How do I get my mind here, right? So it's like tricking kind of the mind. It's giving the mind a job to do. There's also qualities there, and I can't remember them right now. So I'm looking here.
You mean the cool, warm, the breath can be...
No, the space between in the breath. Yeah. And I should have mentioned those too, so I will in a moment. I don't even think.
The qualities of the space.
Yeah. I think I covered it all. No, I already said it all. Sorry. So we've explored all the qualities of the breath. We've explored how to anchor into the breath. I want to mention two more things that are very helpful for beginners as you set out. Because what we're asking you to do, and we're bumping up into the end, so now I'm trying to get everything in, is we're asking you to use these methods and practices to go out on your own and commit to a 3-minute practice every day or daily-ish over the next week, right? So how do we do that? We're going to sit either in a comfortable chair like you're sitting in now, or you could sit on the floor, or you could lay down. Now, I would encourage you not to lay down if you're as tired as you are now, because you'll likely just you'll just fall asleep. If you're that tired, sometimes it's best to just stand up. Okay, because even sitting will fall asleep, right? So I would say over the next couple days, either do your practices sitting or standing, just 3 minutes. So we're going to set the timer. Did everybody download the Insight timer? Right? So I'd encourage you to do that, but you could also use a timer, an egg timer in your kitchen, a timer on your phone with a bell, right? The Insight timer is great because it's free and there's a nice tool in there with bells and chimes and stuff, okay? First thing you're doing is landing in your body. Feel your feet against the floor. Feel your sit bones in the chair. Feel your strong spine. Then turn towards the anchor of the breath. Give that a try. If the anchor feels supportive, stay there. If it doesn't, try using the anchor of your hands on your lap. Okay? And notice if there's any judgment there, acknowledge it and be kind to yourself. Okay? It doesn't matter if it's the breath or the body. Okay, we just need to establish that anchor. What also I want you to be really careful of catching yourself with is if you notice you've been pulled away from your full attention in the anchor, don't get hard on yourself for that noticing. That noticing is a moment of mindfulness. That's where the magic happens. That's where you're changing your brain, neural pathways in your brain. That's how you're redirecting back to, I'm right here. Okay? And these neural pathways that are moving through, you could think of them like the super highways. Like, who has the same drop off every day for a child, or the same route to work? Okay, you could almost do that blindfolded, right?
I do it on my days off.
Yeah, right. So that's what happens. Like, that's just a path that the same thing happens with the neural pathways in the brain, right? So there could be a story that you're really attached to, right? That's not serving you anymore. It's not helpful anymore, right? And that story keeps dropping into your meditation time. The more we reroute our attention back to an anchor, the stronger that new pathway gets. And the other pathway will start loosening its grip.